Good evening. We're going to be learning. This is a wonderful book called Love of Life and its deep insights on the Torah, the weekly Torah portion. So he starts off, this is on Parashat Matot, the first, because this week's a double parsha, and it's also actually blessing the new moon this Shabbat. We're blessing Rosh Chodesh, the head of the month. So this week's Parsha Matot starts that Hashem spoke to Moshe, saying, "Take vengeance, the vengeance of the children of Israel from the Midianites, and after you, Moshe, will be gathered to your nation." So we see here that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, told this commandment over differently to the children of Israel. It says Moshe spoke to the nation and said, gather from you, get out from you, Anashim Atzah, men for the war. Hi, Louise, nice to see you here. And he says, gather for you men for the army, and they will be on Midian to give the vengeance of Hashem in Midian. So we see that Hashem said to Moshe, take the vengeance of the children of Israel from Midian. Moshe says to the children of Israel, take the vengeance of Hashem from Midian. So what's going on? Whose vengeance is it at the end of the day? He brings Reiti Katuv B'Sefer Mishlei Yaakov from this book. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe. Hashem said to Moshe, Nezek Shelachem Hu Shegarmu Li La'anish Etchem Lo Midyanim. He says, what the unfortunate thing that the children of Israel did was what caused me to punish you guys and not the Midyanim. Shalom, David. Nice to see you. Glad you're here. So he says, what is it that caused me to punish the Bnei Israel and not the Midianites? Moshe said, Master of the universe, you know that if we would have despised or went against your mitzvot or your Torah, the nations wouldn't hate us and they wouldn't chase after us if we would just turn our back on your Torah. So why do they hate us? Because of your Torah and because of the mitzvot that you gave us, and because of their great hate, so to speak, they make us sin. And that's why the vengeance is Hashem's vengeance, because it's what you gave us, to give the vengeance of Hashem in Midian, that they made the children of Israel sin with the sin of what we read in the end of Parashat, the Parsha before, and what Pinchas fought against, that specific sin. From here we learn what is a Jewish leader, and this Parsha is speaking to the heads of the tribes, to the leaders of Israel, and not necessarily just in the days of the kings of Judah and Israel, even in our exile, when our leaders are acting well, it helps, basically. There was a story once, a Rebbe, it was a Rebbe, a Chassid, that he was the Chazan. He was the Chazan for the holy days in his great big yeshiva, and all of his followers would come around him every year on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim, and on Yom Kippur night they would start Kol Nidrei already in the daytime. One time in the eve of Yom Kippur, the time of Kol Nidrei, this Rebbe stood on the bima, and instead of starting Kol Nidrei, he started crying. He started crying for half an hour. All the Hasidim were looking at him, looking at each other. They couldn't say a word. A long time passes. They still didn't start Kol Nidrei. The night has come, and he keeps on crying. The whole congregation was really distressed. They didn't know what to do. All of a sudden, the Rebbe lifted his talit from his face. He asked the congregation, is there someone who knows this Nasikh, this kind of like uh, a nobleman, so to speak, from this place. It happened to be that there was one older man, a guest, and he said, "Yes, I know this person. I know him very well." And the Rebbe asked him, "Where are you from?" He said, "I'm from this certain place that this there, and uh, he passes by our village every day." The Rebbe said to him, "Does he have a dog?" A dog? He said, "Yes, this nobleman has a big dog who's very strange. Literally, the dog is basically as big as a donkey." And everyone was looking at each other. What is this? What's going on here? Instead of talking about starting Kol Nidre on this holy day of Yom Kippur, this Rebbe is asking about a dog that is as big as a donkey. What's going on here? The Rebbe kept on asking this elder what this nobleman would do with the dog. Said every day the nobleman would give the dog meat to eat, and sometimes he would slaughter a goat for him, sometimes a sheep, sometimes a bull, or sometimes chickens. And this dog had a very special house, and literally the house was furnished and made beautiful as if he was an honored person, this dog. One day in this summer, it was in lunchtime, the nobleman sat down to eat in his garden. They brought him roasted pig. The dog came by and grabbed a piece of the pig. The nobleman got very angry at the dog and started beating the dog, and the dog was bleeding, and he threw out the dog. So the Rebbe heard this, that the nobleman kicked out the dog, got very happy, and he banged on the bima with great joy, and he started Kol Nigdre with a beautiful song and with joy, and all of the congregation was very aroused in their hearts, but they didn't understand. What happened? Why did the Rebbe speak about these things? But they started praying with great joy, and the whole Yom Kippur passed on them with great joy. But the Hasidim were they didn't know what this whole thing that happened. They still didn't get it. When Yom Kippur ended, they came to the table of the Rebbe to end the fast with joy and dancing, like the Hasidim do. And the first cup they took to say L'chaim, they all opened their mouth and said L'chaim to the Rebbe, the crown of our head. Please tell us, what was this whole thing that happened before Kol Nidre? He said, pay attention to my words. In the city of Berlin, there is a Jew who is very poor, and he's very humble and modest, and he has only one daughter, and he and his wife was crying, basically, what's going to be with our daughter? She pushed him a lot that he should go and collect money to marry off their daughter. So he went, and he wasn't able to gather anything. Anywhere he went, he wasn't able to go gather anything. He would go to the synagogue and just learn Gemara. He wasn't really successful at gathering money. 3 months passed that he left his house from place to place. He wanted to go to his home. He didn't even have anything to eat. He left the city. There was a great field, and he sat on the field and he started crying. And meanwhile, that nobleman who had the dog passed by, sees this Jew crying, says, "What's the matter? Why are you crying?" He tells him everything. He says, "How much you need to marry off your daughter?" He says, "At least I need 300 rubles." He said, "Come with me to my field." He gave him a chair. He sat. He brought him bread and tomatoes and other fruits. He knew that this Jew is not going to eat from his non-kosher food. He gave him water to wash. And in the meanwhile, he went and brought him 500 rubles. And he made him very happy. He says, "Now you should know, my Hasidim, when I stood to say Kol Nidre, I saw that the angel of that, basically that nobleman, was speaking bad on our nation. And there was a great, so to speak, persecution in heaven. They said, how did the Jews themselves not help this poor guy, and this nobleman helped him? And if not for this nobleman, he and his wife and his daughter would be in great danger. And anyone who saves a Jewish life, and they kept on going, the prosecution, so to speak, upstairs. And so what did I do? I started crying. I saw there was a bad decree on the city of Berlin. And I was crying and doing what I could. I wasn't able to succeed on this prosecution, so to speak. But when I heard about the dog, I screamed upstairs. And I said, this nobleman wasn't trying to save a Jew. By him, there's no difference between a dog and a person. And a proof for this is, the minute the dog grabbed a piece of the pig, all of the expenses that he had spent on the dog, that you heard, in 1 minute, in 1 moment, he lost it all. He injured his dog and kicked him out. And this is what he did for a living being that has no understanding or knowledge. And if this Jew would have stayed in his house for a month and he would have made a little mistake, certainly he would have gotten very angry at him and probably would have killed him. Because that's how sometimes they behave. And especially these people, you know, that they're anti-Semites. And that's why there's no mitzvah over here. There was no mitzvah what he did. And through this claim that I made, the decree was nullified, and the gates of mercy were opened up, and that's when I started Kol Nidre with joy. So he says that the Rebbe said to the Hasidim, from here on, I really warn you to really take care of the poor people of the city, to help them, and to seek out discreetly on those families that are too humble and too embarrassed, so to speak, and because certainly they probably need help and they're just too embarrassed to ask. And this same story happened in the days of the Arizal also, and that's why before Yom Kippur comes, we really need to appease our friends. It's very important, because God forgives us on the sins that are between us and God. He can't forgive us on the sins between us and our friend unless our friend or whoever it is has forgiven us. And we should ask for their forgiveness, whether it was in speech or in action. And this also has a lot to do with the leaders, that they can arouse the hearts of the people. He goes on and on. There's just really beautiful stories here. Just to speak a little about Parashat Mas'eh, which is the second Parsha. Parashat Mas'eh goes through all of the journeys of the children of Israel in the desert in the 40 years. They took 42 journeys from place to place. So in all those 42 years, they only made 42 journeys. God really kept them. He tried to keep it easy and make them not travel too much. And it says spiritually that we also have these 42 journeys in our life, and we don't know what each journey, what the lesson is. And when we're finished in a specific place, that's when we can move on to the next place. So this week we're blessing that, and we're reading that, and we're learning that, and we're blessing our journey, that we should be successful. And I really hope that we can, this journey that we're in right now, the current one, we can move out of it, so we can move on to something bigger and better. Much love, you guys, and I hope to be back tomorrow morning. Have a great night. Thank you.